Yes.
All right. So the student assessment unit is responsible for developing and managing the administration of national assessments. And by national assessments, we're talking about the grade 1 individual learning profile, the grade 3 diagnostic test, the grade 4 new, well, it has changed now to PEP 4, PEP 5, PEP 6, GNAT, that's the grade 9 achievement test, JSC, that's the Jamaica Secondary Certificate, and the VSLCE, that's Vocational School Leavers Certificate. That exam is done by students in our agricultural schools in I think there's one in Nakalpa, and they take those exams to matriculate into CASE. So we manage, we develop, and see to the administration of all of those examinations. You're not hearing me? Are you hearing me, O'Neill?
Yes, I am. I am hearing you clearly.
Okay, great. Right. So for all of our assessments, we have our typical process is we begin with curriculum analyses. So whatever curriculum that applies to the examination that will be developed, we do a review. Well, most of this would have been done from inception, but I'll speak primarily to what happens for PEP, since PEP is kind of new and would have been built off of the NSC, which is also new. But the process applies to any examination that is that comes out of the unit. So we basically do what we call curriculum analyses. And in this analysis, what we do is we look to see what content is to be measured. We look to see at what cognitive level the content is to be measured. And we also look to see the distribution of the content. So if how many objectives are on a particular topic and so forth. So after doing those analyses, we develop a blueprint. Now, bear in mind that we cannot measure every single objective in the curriculum. So we develop a blueprint that represents a sample of the objective. A sample of the curriculum. We try as much as possible to make it I think you would call that a stratified sample, where the topics are selected and the proportion of marks and such allocated to the topics reflect the focus of the curriculum. So if, for example, at grade 4, if you look at the grade 4 curriculum, the NSC curriculum, you will see where a large portion of it for mathematics, for example, is related to the number strand. And so you'll find that the bulk of the test will measure number concepts. So after we do that analysis, we develop the blueprint. We then invite persons to come in. Usually these are teachers in the system teaching at the grade level, to come in and do what we call item writing. So we give them a little training at first, what are the characteristics that we're looking for, how to interpret. The blueprint will assign objectives to them, and then they will develop or write items that measure the objectives at the required depth of knowledge levels. After the item writing is completed, the items come in-house and the test developers review the items. And we review through the lens of, we're looking for biases. For example, is the item targeting, or would it give an advantage to a particular group of students and disadvantage another? Is the context relevant to the situation of a typical Jamaican child, and so forth. We also have another level of the review process that we call contextual analysis, where we bring in a totally different set of teachers and educators to review the items, and they will give us their feedback, what kind of edits they think should be made. Should the item be used? Should it be discarded? Or should it be revised? So after contextual analysis and after internal review by the test development officer, another level of review that takes place is what we call piloting. So the test development officer takes the test items and, you know, creates kind of like a mini test, like maybe about 15 to 20 items, and we will go out into schools and administer the test. So we try to do a random sample, again, a stratified random sample of schools in the country. So if we're piloting for grade 4, we try to get a sample from every parish. We try to get participants in the sample from different kinds of schools: rural schools, urban schools, deep rural schools. Yeah, we pretty much try to get a representative mix to see how students respond to the item. After the students complete the test, so they typically, it's a multiple choice test. We take that data in, we generate statistics for each item, how many persons got it right, how many got it wrong, how many persons are selecting a particular distractor. So most of the multiple choice items, they would have 4 options. So we look to see of the, what we would call the high performers, those who would be getting, so if there are 20 items, for example, your high performers may be those getting 15 or more, your low performers would be those getting 5 or less. So of those students, who are the persons selecting particular options? So if we have an item, for example, and after piloting, we realize that of the 600 students who did the, who participated in the pilot, only 100 of them are answering the question correctly. Then that may be, there, we have to review that item, because it may mean that the wording is faulty, or the content may be outside of what is typically taught in the classroom. So we have a range that we work with that is acceptable. And a range, of course, meaning items that are moderately difficult, and those that are moderately easy, and those that are average. Because the composition of the test, as I said before, would have to reflect the cognitive level, a range of cognitive levels, especially for PEP, where we are trying to determine where the student is performing. We have to have items at different performance levels, so we can, without a doubt, say that yes, this is the level at which the student is performing. So
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but
sure. I'm barely hearing you, Don Marie.
Hear me better?
Let me turn my volume up.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. Cool.
You can continue on the phone.
All right, so that's right. So we have 3 levels of review before the items even make it onto the test. After all of that, the test developer reviews the comments from the contextual analysis, reviews the statistics from the piloting, and then selects items that would be now suitable to be included for the operational test. And by operational test, I mean the test that is to be administered in that particular year. After the test developer puts the test together, we have another series of reviews I see your question, Don Marie, and I'll answer in a second. We have another series of reviews where we have internal and external reviews. So internal meaning all the test developers from all the subject areas come together and review the tests. So we get a balanced perspective. And then we have external reviews where other stakeholders who would have not been involved in the process from the beginning would come in and give it another level of review. Also those reviews, whatever comments or suggestions are made, they are applied, and then the test is ready for administration. So that is our typical process for all of our tests. Now, the question I'm seeing here from Don Marie is they're asking if the levels of which I'm speaking are the domains of learning, cognitive, or so forth. All right, so at the student assessment unit, we use Webb's depth of knowledge. So there are 4 levels, and we use levels 1, 2, and 3 primarily on our curriculum-based test. That would be the one that is administered to our grade 6 students. And this is in relation to PET, you know. And for our performance tasks, we now push it up to a level 4. So those are the cognitive domains that I'm speaking about when I refer to levels. I hope that answers the
your
question.
phone's ringing. Why is there food in your room?
All right, Deandra, you were saying something?
No, I was talking. No, sorry. Sorry, I was talking to my son. I didn't know that my mic was on.
Okay.
Sorry. But I do want to ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So can you tell me the advantages of using a multiple choice what's the word I'm looking for, assessment?
Well, multiple choice, if I could think of an advantage, I would say the first advantage is it's easy to score. When you have large scale tests like we report in excess of 45,000 students, you know, the typical response after a test is done. Persons want, if the test is done today, persons want the results tomorrow. And it is a very difficult process when to score subjective scripts for that large number of students. I think I would have missed our marking exercises because after the students complete the tests, the multiple choice items are typically done on a special, what we call a Scantron sheet that is scanned by the computer. The subjective part or the long answer part of the paper we gather together, usually around April, around March, no, April, May, I think June or July, depending on the level of the test. And we mark, we physically gather teachers from all over the island to mark. So in terms of advantage, the multiple choice tests are much easier to score. If you want to use your multiple choice test to measure higher levels of thinking, like your domain, Webb's depth of knowledge 2, 3, it takes a bit of skill to start. It's not impossible.
Vanessa.
Yes, O'Neill?
Everyone here?
Yes, hi, O'Neill.
Okay. Seems as if the internet went. My students had a lot of issues with internet today.
Okay. So you didn't hear what I was saying?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I wonder, oh, that may mean it may affect the recording.
No, man, it could be.
It's okay,
right,
O'Neill, I'm also taking notes as well, so if you miss something, I can send you the notes.
All right, good.
Right. So, so I'll just recap the multiple choice in terms of advantages. It's easy to score, especially when you have large scale testing. You can use your multiple choice test to measure higher order thinking. It just requires a lot, a skill. It requires some skill to write your multiple choice items to measure your higher levels of thinking. But we usually use them for the, we usually use it just because of the ease of marking. It's less expensive because when the students do the tests on the Scantron sheets, we have the computers mark them, as opposed to the subjective tests where we have to gather like in excess of 100 teachers in some location and have them mark the papers. And then, you know, with subjective marking, there is also, we have to go through a rigorous quality check to ensure that the scores are accurate so that no child is disenfranchised.
Ms. Powell, thank you very much. I have a question to ask.
Sure.
In regards to grade 2. Is there any assessment for grade 2?
Not right now, but I know we are in the process of shifting the grade 3 diagnostic to grade 2, because the grade 3 diagnostic is done at the end of grade 3, just before the students go to their grade 4 assessments. So we've been in dialogue and we're in the process of shifting that to grade 2, the end of grade 2, so it will give teachers more time to implement any intervention that they want. So the students will do an assessment at the enter grade 1. That should give students, the teachers information about where the students are performing. And then with this shift, they will do an assessment again at the end of grade 2. So the teachers can see where any gaps lie, if they're on track, if they need some level of intervention before they know. And then now they would have another year to get the students on track now before they do their assessment in grade 4.
Okay. Another question, in terms of the unit goes into the school to help teachers to create exams or things like that?
Well, as a matter of fact, prior to late last year, I think the only group we did not target or we didn't get to go out toward the grade 1 teachers, but we started about in 2017 a rigorous series of professional development sessions for teachers, where we taught them how to develop blueprints, how to write items, how to put tests together, how to write rubrics for their performance tasks. And yeah, we did spend a lot of time. We have quality assurance officers assigned to schools to support them with the development of their internal tests and assessments. So we do that from time to time. But like I said, it was over a period of 2 years. The only group that we had not gone out to is the grade 1 teachers. There are assessment coordinators in schools that we have met with multiple times, that maybe about 4 times, so that you have that one specialist, so to speak, in a school who has a little further insight into assessment practices.
All right. Thank you very much. If I am very helpful answers. If I am an assessor, right, or an officer, and I'm told to describe the instrument that I'm going to describe the instrument that a teacher used to assess her student. What are some of the things that would go into the details?
All right, so the first thing, when I go into a school and a teacher gives me a test to review, I'm hoping that is what you're asking.
Yeah.
The first thing I ask for is the table of specification, because the table of specification is going to give me some indication about what the teacher's intent was. What objectives were they planning on measuring? At what cognitive level were they planning on measuring these objectives, and the distribution of the content that they plan to measure with this test. So after looking at the blueprint, I now use the blueprint to compare to the test. So if, for example, on the blueprint, I'm seeing where the teacher intended to measure objective A at DOK level 2, then I'm looking at the item to see, is the item measuring the objective with fidelity? For example, did the objective ask the students to require that the students describe something, but the teacher is asking them to list? Did the objective ask them to be able to calculate, but the teacher is the item is asking them to identify? So I look for those things. What did the objective require the student to do? And is the item measuring the objective? Or in other words, will the answer that the student give to this item give me any evidence that they have met this objective? Because that's essentially what, when you design a test, what you're doing. You're trying to elicit evidence from the student to prove that they have mastered or they have achieved the objective that you set out to measure. So we want to look to see if the item selected match what was intended. In terms of balance, is the test too hard or is it too easy? Meaning the distribution of depth of knowledge levels. Of the 40 items on the test, are we having all 30 of them at DOK level 1? Or even on the flip side, are 30 of them at DOK level 3? In that instance, the test would be too hard. You want to try to have a balance. I typically suggest to my teachers, and it's just a suggestion, it's not a law, but based on the kind of thinking that we want students to operate at, I tend to suggest to them, like, you try to have the bulk of your items at around level 2, because we want to start pushing them to your up towards level 3, level 4. And I suggest the bulk of them being at level 2 now, because for a while we have been operating at our recall level. So I would say maybe for this next school year, I would say to my teachers, all right, now that we have spent last school year engaging the students in more conceptual understanding, let's now push them to the level of the strategic reasoning, using the knowledge in real life situations, being able to apply that. All right, let me see if I can respond to the question here. So as it relates to the requirements for the test, teachers use the blueprint or send their test to you? Do teachers use the blueprint or send their test to you first? I can't vet the test without the blueprint, because it's the blueprint that tells me, or the table of specification that tells me what they intended to do. Outside of that, I have nothing to measure the test against. Because if I just take up the test paper, all I'm seeing are the items that you will be giving to the students. I don't know what objective you've been trying to test. I don't know what cognitive level you intended to measure it at. So unless the teacher is there to tell me, I don't know. So I really don't know what kind of feedback to give to the teacher with the absence of the table of specification, or them there to tell me what they had intended to do. Next question. Yes.
With the table of specification, you're making reference to the syllabus or the curriculum, correct?
No, the teacher is when you get a unit, or so let's say that I am in, let's let's say I'm in the middle of the first term, and I would have taught a unit in a particular subject. So the table of specification would take those objectives in that unit. The teacher would take those objectives in the unit and create a document that says, okay, there are 15 objectives in this unit, and these are the 8 that I'm going to measure on this test. Objective number 1, I'm going to be measuring it at my DOK level 1, because I just want the students to be able to recall this level of information. Objective number 3, I'm going to have 5 items measuring these objectives, and I'm going to have 1 at level 1, 4 at level 2, and 1 at level 5. So it is kind of a matrix that describes what will be measured with this test. That's what the table of specification would be. Is it that these tests are vetted by you before they're administered? Do you recommend that the tests be set solely off the curriculum? In terms of the vetting, if I'm working directly with a school as in giving them support, then yes, I would vet their tests before they administer them, because we want to ensure that we're not wasting our time nor the students' time. Because if I'm measuring students' achievement of a particular unit, nobody has time to be testing twice. So we want to ensure that the items I put on there are measuring the objectives that I taught, so that the information I get will be useful and not a waste of my time. Do you recommend that the test be set solely off the curriculum? I'm not sure what you mean by this, because outside of the curriculum would be where I get my objectives from. So I'm not sure what you mean by it there. What are the possible areas for improvement that you normally make? Usually, the majority of the comments that I give back to teachers is the alignment. The item is not measuring the objective. That is the typical problem that I have. Sometimes we might fall prey to, or we find ourselves in the situation where we're looking online for item ideas and we see these nice items, but the item is not measuring the objective that I taught. It might be measuring something about the topic that I taught, but it's not measuring the objective that I taught. Because if the objective, for example, says that students should be able to distinguish between or among types of rocks, and then the item that I see the teacher have there is to say, name one type of rock, then that item is not measuring the objective, because the objective clearly requires the student to be able to distinguish between. So in a case like that, I'm looking for an item where characteristics of 2 types of rocks would be given, and the student would have to use their knowledge to determine which is which based on the characteristics that have been given. All right, any other question, comment?
All right, for the depth of knowledge, right? Do you have your own version at the unit, or you use the standard one that is out there?
Standard one. Once you go online and type in Webb's depth of knowledge, whatever you see there coming from Norman Webb, that's what we use.
Okay, good. Because I know that some people might have a modified version or something like that.
No, not modify. We don't modify it.
Okay, great. In terms of do you work closely with the national standards curricula?
That is what we use for grades 4, 5, and 6, and 9.
Okay. And so is there anything for grade 2 in terms of curricula? government?
The primary, once it's from any test related to grade 1 to 9, we use the NSC.
How could we source it?
There are copies on the ministry's website.
Okay.
Right. So once you go to moe.gov.jm, you look for the PEP link, or if you do, I think .gov.jm/PEP, it will take you to the PEP portal, and you go to the curriculum link, and you select your grade level, and you can download it from there.
All right. Is there a movement towards alternative assessment?
What do you mean?
All right. So we know the traditional testing of pen and paper and all of these different stuff, multiple choice. But in terms of the performance task, is it that we are moving away from the traditional way in which we test the students to test their skill set, being creative, maybe doing a video or do something like that?
Believe me, we have, up to this point, we have been discussing it. One of the challenges, as you would have realized, that we're experiencing now is access. Because if we're going to ask students to submit their performance in a video, how many students have access to resources to be able to do that, to prepare to do that, and to actually do that on test day? If we are to do that on test day, it would mean that the ministry would have to provide those resources, which, as you can imagine, would be quite expensive. And so we encourage it at the school level, but at the macro level of the ministry, it's going to take some more resources for us to be able to do that, so that every child has equal opportunity and access.
All right. And also for the performance tasks, we have 3 members of our group. They are not from Jamaica. Could you tell us a little bit about the PEP performance task?
All right. So the performance task is basically a section of the test where we ask the students to apply the skills that they have learned in school. We try to, going back to the NSC, everything begins with the NSC. The NSC, we have the core subjects, which should be your math, language, social studies, and science. And we have the aesthetics and the name is slipping me right now. The name is slipping me right now, but there are resource and technologies. Thank you. So the resource and technology aspect of the curriculum is where they get a chance to apply what they have learned in class, learn what they would have learned in the core areas as well as their aesthetic areas. So the performance task is basically now measuring the students' ability to apply the content that they would have learned in a real life situation. So for example, the students learn about, in social studies, they learn about protecting their environment. So your performance task may put the student in a situation to say, this is a particular effect or negative effect that's happening in this particular location. Suggest some ways in which you can fix this problem. And this is just loosely speaking now. Now, what it will require the student to do is to remember what they would have learned in social studies about. So if it's an area that is being flooded, what are the issues that would cause the flooding? How do we mitigate against these issues, if it's a proactive or a reactive response, and also use their own experiences and their own creativity to come up with or to suggest some plausible solution. So that's basically what the performance task is. It's a task where we give the students a real life context where they will have to apply the content knowledge that they have learned in their class. Once you go online and type in performance tasks, once they are reputable overseas institutions, then you should see examples of what those performance tasks will require the students to do. The COM task that we had on the GSAT is a performance task. Many people seem to forget that performance tasks aren't necessarily 100% new to us. They've always been doing it for language arts, but it has just now been extended to the other 3 core areas.
Okay, that is very useful for me. I didn't know that one.
Which part you didn't know?
The communication is task. Yeah, I never know that one.
GSAT had that performance task component.
Okay, so the performance task could also be pen and paper.
Yeah, man, it is under this situation. It is pen and paper. Okay. Because they might put the students in a situation where they have to write what their solution would be. It's not necessarily I know initially we were thinking about them making things, but again, access to resources became an issue, because how do we ensure that the student in deep rural Trelawney has access to the same resources to create as the student in urban Kingston?
Makes sense.
At what levels do the performance tasks test? We test from 1 to 4 on the Webb's depth of knowledge scale.
All right, any other question, members of the group? I think this was very, very helpful. It cleared up a lot of misconception that I had.
Yes, that's everything.
What misconception you had, O'Neill? Tell me one that it cleared up for you.
So one would be the performance, that, for example, I thought before that a performance task is actually the students going out and just make something. And it's had nothing to do with pen and paper. That was one of the misconceptions. Okay. So I had no idea that you could apply. For example, I'm a history teacher. I could use, maybe, for example, let the student pretend as if he or she is a historian and give them a task to do and pen and paper, and that would also count as a performance task.
Yeah, man, because if you let's say, for example, this is all right, we're experiencing COVID-19 right now, and a part of your whole history is the recording of experiences from different perspectives. So you could have them go out, interview some persons, and this is at the classroom level. They interview and come up, create some kind of, what do you call it now? Let's say a biography. I'm not even sure if that is the right word, because history is not my strength. If they create some kind of document sharing the experiences of persons who have contracted COVID-19, and creates, so that would be like a book or a booklet that would now be for archive in the libraries for persons to read in years to come. So you can have them do things like that, share their own experience with the quarantine. Those are performance tasks where it's a real world situation. You are recording what has been happening in history as a historian, you're being assigned to
Yeah.
this person. From the social studies end, one task that I gave to some students was that you have studied Caribbean culture. Create so you're now a tour guide. You are a tour guide and you're to put together a tour package for somebody coming to Jamaica from Haiti so that they can have a Jamaican experience and compare that experience now to elements in culture from Haiti. That's a performance task. So it is not limited to acting or making tangible products. It can also be paper and pencil.
Okay, and I know this has nothing to do with this stuff, but you mentioned about the unit administering is it the Jamaica secondary exam, something like that?
Yes, Jamaica Secondary School Certificates, JSC.
You know, I thought that exam was no longer here.
Yeah, man, it's still operational.
So you have a lot of students still doing it?
Yeah, man, persons still do it because persons who want to get into the army or to go to I guess firefighters, those local jobs, it's accepted. So they do, and it's very cheap because it's like less than 50 Jamaican dollars for one exam.
Because I know, all right, so I do a lot of history stuff, and I remember doing some research on Cayman, and that exam was administered in Cayman right up to 1958. So I thought that once CXC came into play in the 70s, then that exam was completely eliminated. I never know that it still continues. So that
matter
is
of fact, we had our sitting in during COVID right here sincere.
that is something that is something I've learned also.
And there's a number of subjects that are offered, you know, because you have biology, physics, chemistry, language, history, math.
Okay. And in the marking, so your unit is in charge of basically the marking of the grade 3, the 4, and
no, we don't mark grade 3. Teachers mark grade 3. We just prepare the test and send it out to them. We send them a scoring guide, so to speak, and they score it and analyze the results for themselves because it's a diagnostic test. So we don't take that information back.
I think I remember doing a test, a diagnostic test in grade 3. I think I remember doing that. Because my year group would be the first one who would have done the literacy test.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I guess I can guess my age from from that. And would maybe be the second one to do the GSAT, the second year group to do the GSAT.
Yes, you would have been the second year.
Yes, I would have been the second, yeah. All right. So, all right, these are all the questions. I believe you have answered all the questions that we have. And I'm very, very grateful for you taking the time out to explain to us about what the unit is doing. And you were very clear in answering our questions and giving us background information on the role of the unit. So on behalf of the group members, thank you very much. I keep saying Miss Powell, maybe you're Mrs., correct?
Oh, Mrs. what it is.
All right, so my sincere apology, Mrs.
No, Miss.
You're Miss?
Yes.
All right, Miss Powell. All right, so I'm correct then. All right, so thank you very much. Any word from the other group members?
No, just thanks again for helping us out. We learned a lot. I have a lot of notes here, so it's going to be very useful for the assignment we have.
Oh, what is the assignment? Give me some more background about this assignment and the course that you're doing.
So we're doing introduction to assessment, and so we got a grade 2 paper.
Right, Don
That
Marie
was,
sent me the paper.
yes, that grade 2 paper. And what we're doing is that we are going through the paper and basically evaluate the quality of the paper. Is it in line with your unit, the student assessment unit targets, or philosophy, and also the national curricula, no, the national standard curricula
Okay.
units. So all of that is involved in what we are doing.
When is it due?
It is due on the 26th. However, we want to get it out not the week coming, but about mid the following week.
Okay.
Yeah. So if there's
Did you get a table of specification with it?
No. So when you just said something like that to us about the table of specification, because my idea was that we would have just go to use the curriculum, the national curriculum that is there to assess the, what you call it now, to use that to measure the test.
To match the object.
Yes.
I mean, you can do that. It just makes it a lot more time consuming for you, because you now have to be flipping through the curriculum trying to match.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's an end of year test, so I guess her mindset, the lecturer's mindset is that maybe by the end of the year, everything should have been covered. Maybe maybe that's the mindset.
Just my quick glance at it, I'm not seeing where the 4 C's are being measured. Because students, I know I saw a little section where the students were asked to do some writing.
Yeah.
So I guess that could cover some aspects of the communication. I know I wasn't seeing much of the critical thinking. The collaboration you may not be able to measure from this test. I never see much creativity either. But what you like, well, the approach that you're choosing to use makes sense. Try to identify which objectives the items are aligned to. Make sure the required cognitive level required is what, and especially if it's an end of year test, it needs to cover all of those things. So when you get the curriculum document, try to find as well the curriculum framework that describes what the philosophy of the curriculum is, and see if that is reflected in the test.
Okay, thank you very much. I think last night Deandra and I had a conversation about domain of learning targets. You could explain a little bit about that for us?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. I know
that is just something that she said. She said domain of learning targets. So I guess maybe it's the year group she's talking about when she said domain.
Well, and from my teacher's training, I don't know if she means cognitive domain, affective domain, psychomotor domain. I'm not sure if that's what she means either. So
all right, maybe that's it.
That could be it as well.
Okay.
O'Neill, I think it's those that Vanessa just said, the domain.
The cognitive, psychomotor, and affective.
Yeah, man, it's those.
Okay.
All right, good. Excellent.
I have another quick question, Vanessa. So like the specifications, is there a document that you would have in your possession with those?
No, man, that is generated by the teacher. You guys, what year are you guys in?
Well, we just started.
First year?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is Don Marie, send me an email address and I'll send you some documents and you guys can look at it and see if it makes sense for you.
All right.
Okay, I will.
All right. Well, I will have to go now because I'm actually now 20 minutes late for my class.
All right. We're sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, then take care.
Bye-bye.
So just send me the email address and I will send you some documents that we have been sharing with our assessment coordinators so that you can get a sense of what we have done with them, and feel free to circulate them with your other classmates.
Okay, we will. Thanks.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye. All the
I
Bye.
hope
Bye.
I have
Bye-bye.
helped.
Yeah, man, you have a lot. Thanks.
All right, take care then.
All right, group members.
Yeah.
Because I'm driving. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, no problem. I think so far we would have gotten quite a lot. So we'll talk later when everyone is in the group.
Okay. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.